Good morning and welcome to a very misty Lake Windermere. And this wasn't supposed to be my location for this morning, but as I was passing the lake you could see there was a lot of mist around, and you don't get these conditions very often, so I had to pull over and have a look. So I'm going to have a little scout about and see if I can find a couple of shots. So this is the first shot that I've spotted. It's this little wooden boat that's sitting here. Now on Windermere there's lots of modern boats, but I think this makes a much nicer subject. And this is a very, very simple shot. There's nothing in this shot really at all apart from the boat itself, so it's very, very minimalist. I do have one tip for when shooting in conditions like these, and that is to check your metering. I shoot in manual mode, so I can set the exact shutter speed that I want, but if you're shooting in aperture priority or even full auto, then the camera's going to make that decision for you. And I've noticed that this morning my camera is underexposing by 2 stops. So when I'm setting my shutter speed, I'm actually 2 stops over what the camera thinks is the right shutter speed. As the mist has lifted, you can start to see much more of the hills in the distance now. And so I've had to drop the camera down a little bit because beforehand the top of the mast of the boat was in line with the top of the mountains. And what you want is you want that to break that horizon. So drop the tripod down a little bit. As I've been photographing this boat, it's been turning, and that's allowed me to try a couple of different compositions. And so I've got a couple of compositional tips for you. If you're photographing the boat from side on, remember that it's a vehicle, so it has a direction of travel. So what you want to do is you want to leave space in front of the boat for it to move into. If you have it pointing in the other direction out of the frame, that can look a little bit odd. The other thing you might want to try is to shoot the boat from behind, so it's pointing towards the hills in the distance. And that creates a bit more of a story, the boat travelling off to the mountains in the background. Anyway, I think I've got a shot that I'm happy with, so it's time for me to pack up my gear and get back to my plan for the day. There are no prizes for spotting that I'm now at Bleetarn, and this wasn't my planned destination either, but there is absolutely not a breath of wind this morning, and when reflections are this good on Bleetarn, you've just got to stop and take a shot. As usual, what I've done at Bleetarn this morning is I've come down to the water's edge opposite the reflections. And this is actually quite a difficult location to shoot from. The problem is that there's quite a lot of boulders in the foreground, and it can be very messy, and it's difficult to isolate just one. And one of the things that I've learned over the years is that there is a large boulder here which works brilliantly as foreground interest, and the easiest way to isolate that is to turn your camera into portrait orientation and kind of put it in the middle. And if you're shooting landscape orientation, what I've had to do today is push it off to one side. So I've got the Langdale pikes on the left hand third, I have Side Pike on the right hand third, I'm including more of the hills on the right hand side than I would usually, and then putting this big rock in the bottom right hand corner. Now I think there's an even simpler composition here at Bleetarn, particularly if it's perfectly still and you've got perfect reflections like we do today. If you come up onto the small mound behind where we were shooting and set your lens at about 50mm, you can cut out the foreground completely. And then if you focus in on the Langdale's Side Pike and the reflections and fill the frame with those, you're not going to go far wrong. I cannot believe my luck with the conditions here at Bleetarn today. I have never had reflections quite as good as this, certainly not as this far into the day. It's getting around about 11 o'clock in the morning now. And this has given me lots of opportunity to try different compositions that I wouldn't normally try. Now, I wouldn't normally shoot with this fence. I don't really like it, but as I've got the opportunity to give it a go today, I will have a go. Now, the first problem that I've got is that I want to try and create some separation between the fence and the reflections, and that means trying to get my camera as high up as I can possibly get it. This is the summit of Side Pike, and this was supposed to be my starting point for today. It's now 1:30 in the afternoon, and I've probably only got 2 hours before the sun dips down below the mountains and I lose the light completely. The weather hasn't been very good here in the Lake District for the last few days. In fact, I have had 6 days straight where I've been stuck in the office. Now, I haven't wasted that time. I've spent an awful lot of time doing things on my website and preparing videos for the new year. One of the other things that I did was I got my Hand of Man project in some form of order. Now, what I like to do when I'm planning a project is actually to make a list of 20 or so locations that may feature in the project, and Side Pike was one of them. My plan for today was to spend the day researching locations for my Hand of Man project, starting here on Side Pike. The plan was then to head on to Hard Knot Pass, Hard Knot Fort, and then eventually on to Devote Water. But now clearly that's not going to happen. I just don't have enough time. So I'm just going to have to spend the rest of the day up here on Side Pike. You see, I want to include a drystone wall in my Hand of Man project, and there's a drystone wall up here on Side Pike that runs almost through the middle of it. What I wanted to do today was to see if I could find a composition that allowed me to include the drystone wall and the Langdale pikes in the distance. Unfortunately, on the way up I checked out most of the compositions that I could see, and the wall actually leads the eye out of the frame, which is something that I don't want. So that shot isn't going to work. What might work better is the view of the Langdale pikes and Side Pike from Lingmore Fell, which is behind me, and I can use the wall then to draw the eye into Side Pike. But here on Side Pike itself, it just isn't going to work. So what I'm going to do now is just finish the day and try and find a nice shot of the Langdale pikes as the sun's setting. This is the very spot where I would normally photograph the Langdale pikes from on Side Pike, and I had to get a bit of a move on to get here because I looked up and noticed that the sun was getting very close to the top of the mountains. But I think I might be too late because, as you can see behind me, the Langdale pikes are already in shadow. I get a pretty good signal up here on Side Pike. I actually get a really good 4G signal as well, and I was just texting my wife there to see what she wanted for her tea, and a notification came in that Terry Williams had very kindly made a donation via my Ko-fi page. Now, if you don't know what Ko-fi is, it is a social media platform that allows creators like myself to collect small amounts of money from the people who follow them in order to achieve bigger things. So, for example, I've set up a target on my Ko-fi page, and I'm trying to get enough money together to buy some frames for my first exhibition. And it's supposed to be small amounts. I mean, we're talking £1 here, a couple of dollars there, that sort of thing. And Terry has very kindly made a lovely big donation, which is really going to help me out. So Terry, I just wanted to say a big thank you for that. I will be in touch to say thank you properly and to see if there's anything that I can do for you in return. But if you are interested in Ko-fi or making a small donation to help me to get enough money together to get some frames for my first exhibition, then as usual, the details in the description below. I don't know if you noticed while we were talking then, but some cloud started to form around the top of the Langdale pikes. So I've put on the telephoto lens. I'm at about 120mm, and I'm focused right in on the top of the pikes. I'm trying to get a bit more of a kind of close-up shot at the top where the cloud's coming down. Now, but it does seem, unfortunately, like I'm a little bit too late, and I've got no light on the pikes at all now. I might not have got the shot that I wanted up here on Side Pike, but I have still had a brilliant day. We have had 6 days of pretty poor weather here in the Lake District, so it's been nice to get out and shoot all day, which is something very, very rare for me. This weekend, I'm down in Cornwall. I'm running a workshop with my friend Tom Peters, so the next time you see me, I might be in Cornwall or I might be back here in the Lake District. Anyway, until then, look after yourselves, and I'll see you soon.